Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Diff, Program Coordinator with Charlotte County Libraries and History.
And I'm Bill McDonald, Adult Services Librarian for Charlotte County Libraries and History. And today we're going to talk about Halloween films, are some of our favorites, but kind of focusing on the overlooked ones. The one we did a year ago, we're focusing mainly on films that were quite well known, whether it was Beetlejuice or The Exorcist or The Shining. But now we're going to kind of uncover some of the gems that you may have missed in your horror Halloween film viewing.
Yeah, maybe you're lucky and you've seen some of these films before. They are pretty available right now on a bunch of streaming services. You can even find some of them on Canopy, which is our library streaming service. So that's free if you have a library card. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start off with probably the weirdest film that I have ever seen in my entire life. I've seen a lot of weird,
That's a big claim.
Weird films. I pride myself on finding those really weird artistic films that are out there. So this one really takes the cake for me. And it's called Hausu or House. It's a Japanese horror film. And it was produced in 1977. So those are some really good years for weird movies.
Absolutely, yeah.
This Japanese horror film, it starts off with 6 schoolgirls, and one of them is just really upset with her parents. She gets a new stepmother, and she just doesn't want to spend the summer there, so she ends up talking to her aunt, who she hasn't spoke to in a very long period of time, who lives out in the country in this big old mansion. So her and a bunch of her friends go out and visit with her aunt. And the house ends up being haunted, but it's just this really weird story. The aunt ends up being some kind of like ghost sorcerer. It's really great. You have to watch it. It is considered a cult classic, and this is not just by my standards, and that's kind of how I found it, is by looking through a lot of these lists. Some people consider it a psychedelic Japanese ghost story, so I thought that was the best kind of caption to describe this. It also has a kaibyo, which is a supernatural cat in Japanese folklore, so he has a really nice role in this film as well. And the special effects for House were purposely made to look unrealistic. So you're watching this film, and at the beginning, it's slow, like small things happen over time, and it just escalates over time until you get to the end of the film when the whole scene is just completely chaotic. It makes sense as you're progressing through, but you're kind of wondering, how did I get to this point at the end? There's lots of blood kind of filling up the house, and it's kind of like a creepy Beauty and the Beast, where stuff in the house starts, coming to life and animated and attacking you. So really crazy story, really weird horror film. Decapitated heads attacking you, furniture eating you, a creepy cat. It has anything you can possibly think of is in this movie. So I would definitely check that out.
I would have gone to a different aunt's house.
Yeah, maybe find a different aunt.
Absolutely. Well, the film I picked, now there's a remake of Fright Night. The first one that I'm going to focus on was the one that came out in 1985. And it starred William Ragsdale. Also in the cast is his girlfriend. He plays the character of Charlie. His girlfriend is Amanda Bierce. And rounding out the cast is Roddy McDowall, who goes back to films in the 40s with Elizabeth Taylor, and just everybody in Hollywood loved him. He's a really great, nice person. He's long since passed away. So the character that William Ragsdale plays, Charlie, he's an ordinary high school kid. He's not a super jock, but he's not a brain. He's just, your ordinary run-of-the-mill kid, which I think is refreshing in some films to not have a particular type. And he is a big movie horror show viewer. Every Saturday night he watches a show called Fright Night, hosted by Roddy McDowall, who's named Peter Vincent. Now, I read where Peter Vincent is kind of an ode or homage to two actors in early horror films, Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. And, well, lo and behold, Charlie, whose mother, she's either widowed or divorced. The father isn't around for whatever reason. And so next door moves in Chris Sarandon. Now, Chris Sarandon used to be married to Susan Sarandon. But he does a really good job of playing the suave, well-dressed vampire, very intelligent, very eloquent speaking, but not nice. And so Charlie, there was almost shades of Rear Window. Charlie, of course, looks across the yard into the home of this new person and sees him strangling and biting a young woman. And then, as he's watching Chris Sarandon as the vampire next door do his dirty deed, Chris Sarandon looks out and sees Charlie, and he knows that Charlie knows that he's a vampire, and he's not too happy about it. And I think what I love about this film is that it took me back to childhood. And one of the things that I was entrenched in were vampires. And not so much that the vampire was under the bed or in the closet, but a couple of streets down, there was an old Victorian house. And I was convinced that vampires and ghosts lived in that house. And if I didn't get home before it became dark, they would seek me out. Nobody else, they would overlook everybody else but go straight to me.
I'm sure that your mom loved that house, actually.
Yeah, actually, it was a good way of getting me in on time for supper, as they say. And of course, Charlie, in order to fight this vampire next door, he has to get the help of Roddy McDowall, the TV show host, who says, kid, go see a psychiatrist. And of course, he meets, somehow he was able to convince Peter Vincent, the horror show host, to come to the house next door, and he notices that Chris Sarandon's reflection is not in the mirror, and okay, you know we're dealing with a vampire, and then the rest of them is battling the vampire. But it's a funny, the gore is enough to keep you riveting, but it's not overly sensationalized, and it's just fun vampires. And if you were a fan as a kid like I was, it's just a joy to go back to that place of time.
Fun. Yeah, I like Fright Night. I like both of them. There's the remake that was out too. So my next one is The Ritual. So this one came out in 2017, so it's pretty recent. Mm-hmm. It's a newer movie that's out. I almost didn't watch it. I had seen it on Netflix, and it was just kind of sitting there for a while. I'm like, this isn't gonna be a good movie. I'd never seen it. I hadn't really heard of anybody that was a part of it, so I'm like, whatever. But one day I finally sat down and watched it, and I was just blown away, and I'm so glad that I watched it. The Ritual is such a good movie. It starts off with a group of college friends, and so they're just going on this camping trip. They decided, well, let's get back together. We're, losing our friendship. We have to go on this male bonding trip out in the woods. And they're in Sweden. They're in a forest in Sweden. They are not Swedish, so they have no idea where they are. Just decided to do this, adventurous trip. And of course, one of them hurts their ankle, and they want to try to take a shortcut to their campsite, or to the town that they're trying to get to. And of course, this leads them through some dark, creepy woods.
Always stay on the path.
Always stay on the path. Just leave your friend there, come back with a helicopter or something. Everything will be fine. So while they're walking through the woods, they find a cabin. Also, don't go into those. So it starts off where you're like, all right, you know where it's going. You don't feel very surprised, but the stuff that they start finding in there is very creepy. So there's all these weird like cult pieces throughout the entire house. There's, you know, obviously some kind of God worship happening, you know, some kind of cult that is happening. They see a lot of signs in the woods, not things that you want to see. Of course, they start, you know, getting injured and things like that. Eventually, a group of people finds them, the cult worshipers find them, and of course take them hostage to be used as sacrifices for the god that they worship in the Swedish woods, which of course has ties to Norse mythology.
Is that the god of IKEA?
No, I think we worship them more here than in Sweden. But it's a Jotun. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a son of Loki, who's the trickster god from Norse mythology. And so this creature is just amazing. You have to watch it. It's the creepiest thing that I've ever seen, and it's not gory. It's not outright gory. You know, it doesn't have blood all over it, or, you know, it's not somebody with a knife attacking you and stabbing you. They do try to run from it at certain points, and I'm not going to give away what the monster looks like, because you have to witness that for yourself and just try to imagine witnessing that weird, strange, dark creature who is a god in the woods. Like, what do you even do? How do you even get out of that?
It's kind of game over before it starts, right?
It won Best Effects in the British Independent Film Awards. It also won in the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards in 2019 for Best Creature Effects, and they deserve it. Really the most imaginative creature that I've ever seen in a film. It's really, really cool. So it is also very creepy and scary and somewhat realistic. Like, you can kind of start to see yourselves or your friends kind of in this situation and doing what they would do, or you try to think, how would you have gotten out of this? So yeah, watch The Ritual. It's a good movie.
That's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Wow. It's still on Netflix currently right now as of September or October of 2021. So yeah, check it out if you have Netflix.
Sounds like a great Halloween film.
Yeah.
My next film is Vampire's Kiss. It came out in 1989, and it was not successful at the box office, nor did critics like it, but it's since become a cult classic. And it has Nicolas Cage. Now, Nicolas Cage in 1989, although he had done Raising Arizona and was in, was it Moonstruck? Yeah, with Sharon. He was well known, but he wasn't as well known as he was today. And the film, he plays a literary agent in New York. He's kind of the quintessential yuppie, dresses really well. And then at night, this is in New York City, he goes clubbing, and he meets a vampire, or a very attractive young woman, played by Jennifer Beals, who of course is in Flashdance. And they go back to his apartment, and he notices that she has fangs, and she bites them, and they do some other things as well. And whether this really happens or not, it could all be in Nicolas Cage's mind. It's kind of revealed that before this even happened, he's seeing a psychiatrist, and to say he's not mentally stable would be an understatement. He's very odd duck in this. And the interesting thing that makes this film different from anything that I've ever seen is Nicolas Cage's performance. He's just doing this kabuki theater kind of just trying to find a new method or way to act. So in some scenes, he'll have an English accent on certain words, and then it'll drift into how Nicolas Cage usually sounds, like Lisa Marie, look, kind of like that. And then other times he'll go into like this New York accent, and then he starts making these really weird faces with his eyes. And he said in an interview that he was trying to tap into the character that Vince Orloff in Nosferatu, with the really big eyes and the shadow behind him. And he's convinced that he's turning into a vampire, but there's no outward sign. So he goes to a store to get some really nice fangs. Now, the fangs that you have are really nice, but
it's another video.
Yeah, it's another video. You can watch that. He can't find any good ones, so he buys these cheap plastic ones, and he goes up to everybody on the street and goes, "I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!" I'm a vampire." And they just look at him like he's lost his mind.
I can't think of anybody else who could play that role as well.
It is just off the charts. I mean, you've seen Nicolas Cage maybe play large or play broad or something. This is just off the charts crazy, and he jumps up on chairs and screams. If you take the film as this experimental comedy that Nicolas Cage decided to do, and the director said, "Yeah, go for it, Nick," then you'll love it. But if you expect like a straight narrative kind of ordinary film, you're not going to be able to get through it, and you'll turn it off.
I think that's all you can expect from Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I mean, you just tell him to star in your movie and just let him go.
Absolutely, yeah. The faces that he pulls and the sounds he makes, and it's just really out there, and it's so out there that if you go with it, you'll have some really big belly laughs. So whether you can call this a horror film, I think you can, because it's subject of a vampire. He's convinced it's a vampire. It's about madness, and Nicolas Cage just trying to invent a new form of acting and expression.
Off the beaten path horror film.
That's exactly.
That's what we're here for today.
It's snugly in the category.
Yeah. So my next one is Repo, the Genetic Opera. So yes, this is a horror
Nicolas Cage should have been in that one.
Should have. This is a horror musical. I don't know how many exist on film as movies, but this right here is a beautiful movie. It's just also one of those weird movies. You're like, how did I get here? But you just enjoy the ride once you're there. So basically, there's this big worldwide epidemic, and people are starting to really get into having surgeries, like elective kind of surgeries, as well as, necessary surgeries. The whole world is kind of, this industrial land where, everybody has some kind of disease or something wrong with them. But it's fine because we have, medical technology to fix you up. It's fine. Everybody just go ahead, go to the doctor, get some new surgery. But if you cannot afford to pay for these surgeries that you're having, then the Repo Man comes out. And like Repo Men who take your belongings, that you can't pay for, they will take your organs back if you cannot pay for them. So there's this Repo Man who goes around and he ends up killing people because he has to bring those back to Gene Co., who is basically controlling everything at this point. It's a really ridiculous film. Paris Hilton is in it, so if you don't like Paris Hilton, you can watch her face fall off. Or if you like Paris Hilton, you can just watch her in this movie. So, something for everybody. And so also, on top of everybody getting all of these surgeries, like everybody has some kind of surgery, they also have an addiction to painkillers. Obviously, they're getting cut open all the time. They have all these, weird problems. So they're addicted to this painkiller or drug called Zydrate. And Zydrate comes from dead bodies. So there's this whole situation where you have, the Repo Man going after people, getting organs back to Gene Co. And then you have like this street urchin kind of population going on, the drug dealers who are breaking into graveyards to steal this substance that they find in corpses to create this painkiller. And it's an opera. It's so
So does Paris sing in this too?
She does a little bit, but they don't let her do too much. But Blind Mag, who is the star of Gene Co., she's basically owned by Gene Co. She has the most beautiful singing voice, so she's the face and voice of Gene Co., is actually played by Sarah Brightman, who is a world-famous soprano. So there is good singing in this. There are good actors in there.
Yeah.
I promise, like, there's well-known people inside of this. It won the Fantasia Film Festival Award for a groundbreaker award. And also, Paris Hilton actually won the Razzie Award for Worst Actress of the Decade for her role in this, as well as other movies such as House of Wax. So I just would like to encourage everybody, whether you like musicals or not, just go on Repo, the Genetic Opera ride. And I feel like, I'm not sure if this is streaming anywhere right now, but sometimes it is, so keep your eye out for that.
Well, you had me at Paris Hilton, so...
Her face falling off, you gotta
Absolutely. Change of pace here. The next film is a more serious film, and it's in the realm of psychological horror. It's Jacob's Ladder. It came out in 1990. Now, it was directed by Adrian Lyne, who did Flashdance. We mentioned Jennifer Beals a while ago, and also Fatal Attraction. He's an English director. And it was written by Bruce Joel Rubin, who also wrote the screenplay to Ghost. And in the film, Tim Robbins has a real interesting career because when you see Tim Robbins in a comedy, like Bull Durham or IQ or something, he's usually this extroverted, happy-go-lucky guy who loves to have fun, loves to get in an adventure. But when you see him in a drama such as Shawshank Redemption or A Mystic River, he's very sullen, he's introverted, he's very troubled. So he has these kind of dual careers, like comedy, hey, and then the drama is very sullen like that. And of course, in Jacob's Ladder, he's very much the latter, very sullen. He's a Vietnam veteran who happens to have a PhD in history, which I think is interesting because it's his history in the past in Vietnam that's troubling him. And he's working currently, it takes place I think in the mid-70s, so he's been out of Vietnam for about 5 or 6 years, and he's working for the post office, and he's having all these hallucinations. He starts having all these hallucinations about either being in Vietnam War or strange kind of humanoid creatures coming out of dark places, and he's trying to find out why is he having these hallucinations. And he discovers that people in his regiment, in his group in Vietnam, were exposed to this dangerous chemical that would increase their ability as soldiers. So he starts contacting them and finding out that these other soldiers in his unit are having some of the same hallucinations. And it's a film that has elements of PTSD, also, the returning vet into today's society and coping with traumatic experiences. And I think it makes you real sensitive to other people's plight and also questions of what happens after life after death. And it's a film that leaves you very introspective and trying to figure out some of these problems that are plaguing you, and also being more sensitive to people who have gone through trauma. And the film was very influential on M. Night Shyamalan and also some of the writers of The X-Files. So it's a film that came out in 1990, and it's in psychological horror. There's no villain or other than the human condition. So it's kind of like the horrors of living, sort of.
Real life.
Yeah, real life, exactly.
So my next film is a little bit more well-known. So my next film is From Dusk Till Dawn. So this is another vampire film. We talk about vampire films a lot. I'm very partial to vampire films. I tried not to pick only vampire films, but I had to stick a couple in here. So From Dusk Till Dawn came out in 1996, so pretty well known. It's directed by Robert Rodriguez, written by Quentin Tarantino and Robert Kurtzman, stars George Clooney, Juliette Lewis, Salma Hayek, Danny Trejo, Cheech Marin, Harvey Keitel. So it is a star-studded cast all around. The whole thing is very well done. So two criminals who are brothers end up taking this family hostage because they need their RV to get into Mexico because they're running from the law. So of course you have police chasing them as well. So there's that story that kind of starts you off, and then they end up in Mexico at this club or this bar called From Dusk Till Dawn. So they end up trying to hide out there while they, figure out their situation, meet up with the people they need to meet up with. And it ends up that this whole entire place is run by vampires. And it's only open from dusk till dawn because that's when vampires are awake. Not because it's the coolest club in town, only open at night, all hours. It's because you are the vampire's meal, and they kind of just lock you in before dawn after they give you a really nice show. Of course, Salma Hayek does not disappoint.
No, she doesn't. I can attest to that.
Snakes are involved. So they kind of entice everybody in to stay, drink, have a good time. But again, there's like this side story happening as well. And so they lock everybody in, and the vampires start attacking everybody. So now they have to, fight off these vampires to survive until dawn. So it's very exciting. Right. It's a very exciting movie. Yeah. Very exciting movie. And it's really great. The ending is great. And of course, it has really spawned a lot of different movies. And there's a TV series out called From Dusk Till Dawn. So go ahead and check out this movie. It's one of the best vampire movies. You have to watch it if you like vampire movies.
My next movie is, now whether some critics, and you can see this on the internet, some people will consider this as a horror film, and other people will say, no, it's not really a horror film. It's Mulholland Drive. It came out in 2001. It's a David Lynch film. And it's David Lynch. He does have elements of horror, but it's not a vampire, it's not a ghost, it's not a zombie. It's just weird things that happen with no explanation out of nowhere that may or may not have anything to do with the plot, which leaves you totally off balance because it's not like you're waiting for something to come out of the closet. It just comes out at you. It takes place in Hollywood, and it focuses on a young actress or aspiring actress played by Naomi Watts. So the first thing you see is the Naomi Watts character who's just won, and this is even done in the credits, she's won this jitterbug contest, dancing a jitterbug from Ontario, and then she goes to Hollywood to seek fame and fortune as an actress. And it seems that things are going well for her. She finds a place to live, that her aunt supposedly was an actress, and she's staying at her aunt's house. She has some real successful auditions, and then she meets this mysterious woman who has amnesia, and then they start befriending her, and then some weird things start happening. Let me tell you about a few of the weird things. One takes place in a restaurant. It's a real restaurant called Winky's. I guess it's like a Denny's. And this character is talking to one gentleman is talking to another gentleman and saying, "I have this continued dream. I've had it 2 or 3 times that we're in at Winkies. And the guy that he's talking to said, at any Winkies? And he says, no, at this particular Winkies, this restaurant right here. And in the dream, I get up to go to my car, and you say, don't go out because there's a terror that's surrounding the building. And the terror is behind the building. And so as he's telling his friends this, he says, okay, well, this is a dream. It's obviously troubling you. Let's go out. It's the middle of the day to show you that there's nothing really to be scared of. So they go out the door and they go around Winkies to the back of the restaurant, and then there's this dumpster. And from the dumpster comes this figure, and it's this very creepy looking figure, and I'm not going to describe it too much because I've seen it about 3 or 4 times and I still catch my breath, and the guy that has the dream just faints. And that's never really explained what that has to do with the movie, but it's just creepy, exactly. And as the movie goes along, you don't know how much of this is Naomi Watts' character's dream of people that she's seen, and maybe this is all part of one dream or a series of dreams that she's having. So as the film goes on, you find out that there's another version, whether this is part of a dream or this is the real Naomi Watts character, who's an actress that things haven't worked out for, who may or may not have had somebody killed. And it's you have to watch the whole thing to even start to understand it, and still you have a lot of questions about the darkness of Hollywood, and you can reach that dream, but will you make it, and how vulnerable you are to all sorts of forces and people who are not well intentioned. Right. And it has some very interesting scenes. So.
Yeah. Sometimes the scariest ones are the ones that are more realistic.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, my final movie is another one that you probably have not heard of. It's called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And this is another one that I just kind of stumbled upon. And this is the one that is on Canopy right now. So you can stream this for free with the Canopy service through the library. It was made in 2014, and it is the first Iranian vampire Western. And it is all shot in black and white. And I don't want that to kind of push you away from it because it is beautifully done. It actually won tons of awards for that. Nominated for Best First Feature at the Film Independent Spirit Awards. Nominated for Best of Next at the Sundance Film Festival. Dublin Film Critics Award at the Dublin International Film Festival in 2015 for Best Cinematography. Fangoria Chainsaw Awards in 2015 for Best Foreign Language Film. Citizen Kane Award for Best Directorial Revelation in the Bucharest International Film Festival in 2015. It was the festival prize winner. So this is a very well done movie. It's obviously not in English, so it does have subtitles. So hopefully you can follow along with the subtitles there. And it also has a really great soundtrack. But the premise of this film is there's this small Iranian town. It's called Bad City. And it's just kind of this rundown town. There's, not a very big population. You can tell that there's this big disconnect in social classes. There's a lot of poor individuals in town. There's a lot of drugs going on. There's a lot of prostitution and people just kind of down on their luck in the town. And it's also a love story as well. So there's this woman who is a vampire, and she walks around alone at night, and she ends up kind of taking down a lot of the bad people in this city. So she's kind of a type of protector in the town, and she really is there to help protect women the most and those who can't really defend themselves. So she's kind of watching this drug and drug activity and prostitution activity in the town. And anytime she sees that a woman is being, pushed down, or, and this drug dealer is, taking over and overpowering them, then she kills them. She kills the drug dealer, and she will take the belongings of that drug dealer and give it to the woman. So it's also feminist as well. So many different, so many things to touch on in this movie. But there's this young guy, so they're both young, I would say late teens, early 20s, and this guy dresses as Dracula at one of these parties, and he ends up meeting her as Dracula. So it's kind of funny, and like one of the
she accuses him of being a poser.
like one of the things that he says is like, "I'm Dracula, are you afraid?" And it's just kind of like, she's a real vampire. So
no, but
cute.
you should be.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. So after kind of taking down some of the people in the town, they end up like running away together. So and again, it has some of those realistic qualities. You can kind of, see some realistic patterns in some of these people's lives. You can kind of connect with some of them. It is a slower movie. This is a drama. This isn't an in-your-face horror movie, but there is a vampire involved, and she does kill some of the people in town to kind of help out. So I think it's a really brilliant story as well. So I just wanted to share that all with you.
Wow, that sounds like a really well-made film. It's good to see women as the protagonists in horror films, too. We need more of that.
Yeah. She also has a skateboard, too.
Oh, really? Wow.
Very interesting.
Covered. Yeah. Now, my next film, my last film, I think has my favorite title of any horror movie I've heard in a long time. It's called Velvet Buzzsaw. I love the title. It's a Netflix film, and it's directed by Dan Gilroy, who directed Jake Gyllenhaal, who is in the film as well, in a film called Nightcrawler, which was out a couple years ago. In this film, Jake Gyllenhaal plays a very influential art critic, and he's friends with Rene Russo, who owns a big art gallery, and then there's an art curator, I think, played by Toni Collette. So it's got great cast, because Toni Collette was Hereditary. And they discover one of the friends of Jake Gyllenhaal's, this man dies in her apartment, and she happens to go through his apartment, and they discover all these paintings. These paintings are very kind of surrealistic and ghastly. And they research this man, and they find out that he had been in prison for killing his father. He was raised in a very abusive household, and suffered all kinds of problems, and was like a high school janitor, and he painted after work. And then when he died, all these paintings were in his apartment. So they decide to collect his paintings and start showing them in galleries, and Jake Gyllenhaal starts writing about him, and then of course it starts to create this buzz on this artist. Now the artist's name is, and I had to write this down, Vetril Dees, and so the new Dees has become this new, of course he dies, and after artists die, often their reputation just goes through the roof. And but in this case, if somebody in the art world has success with one of his paintings, they have to pay with their life, and usually with something that's connected to a painting of his. So if the painting has, let's say, an orangutan, there's an orangutan that comes out of the painting and strangles the person. Or if there's a hanging, somehow an art critic or a gallery owner is hung. And then oftentimes, as the movie goes on, the people's death and the murder area is kind of worked into the art show, and then it becomes more popular, and people who see the art show think it's actually part of the exhibit. And so it's a really fun film. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's kind of a nice satire on the art world, how they see art mainly as a way to further their careers and make them richer, and they kind of have to pay for their lives. And it's got a great cast, and it's just a lot of fun to see this kind of different twist on a horror film.
Yeah, so I hope that you enjoyed our list of different horror films, give you something a little bit different to watch this Halloween. Of course, you can watch all of the classics. Those will be all over the place during October.
True.
So these you can just tie in, maybe add one or two to your list and try out something new that you haven't seen before. So thank you all for watching this, and I hope that you don't get too scared with some of these movies that we're asking you to watch. Have a good Halloween.
Enjoy the Halloween season.